Oh, okay. Issues of my identity is always an interesting subject for everybody in my life and who interacts with me, as most of the people on this panel will attest to. The first time that, let's see, how do I even explain this? First time I understood anything per se was when I was a victim of white violence for what my family looked like, what my friends looked like, and what my life looked like. My parents divorced when I was really young, when I was 9 years old, and my dad left, and the people who helped to raise me were African American. And for me, I thought this was normal. This was my life, this is the way it is. I didn't think this was different. Until you start interacting with other white kids who believe that this is not correct and this is not the way it should be. So I think I really understood that my life was different per se as when I was on an 8th grade trip to an amusement park where I got made fun of the entire time by everybody on the bus because my boyfriend at the time was African American and my extended family, my parents, my father, one of my fathers is African American. So that's where I knew it was interesting. In terms of identity, I've always understood that there's white privilege. I've always understood that there's white supremacy, but probably most of the people on this panel will say that I have not come to grips with being white and my whiteness. When I refer to white people, I talk about they. I will never say we. I have a lot of harsh issues and a lot of issues towards white people and white people in general because of a lot of the violence and the things that I dealt with. That's something I deal with all the time. People would like me to come to grips with my whiteness, but at this point in time, the space that I occupy is the space that I was brought up in, and I just see it as normal where the rest of the world apparently thinks it is not. So I guess my story is a little different.
I just want to follow up on that. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't worry. That's why I don't talk about myself ever.
Well, I'll be gentle. I won't be like in my other class. Okay, let me just follow up on this question. Okay. I heard you say that because of the violence that was enacted against you by other whites, your identity as a white person, you separated yourself from. How does that work? I mean, just in terms of, how does that work in terms of, I guess, how you see yourself and how you relate to other whites? Huh? I'm sorry, what?
I said start on Amy and then I'll back you up.
I'm just curious. I mean, is that a form of self-hatred? Like, for example, in the African American community, if we say, like, you know, I'm distancing myself from blacks, or I'll say black men because of the level of male privilege they might have and the violence that's enacted by black men on black women, so I distance myself. You know, is that a form of self-hatred?
I would be seen as what black psychologists call psychologically and culturally misoriented. Has anyone ever taken black psychology? No? It would be someone who embraces another culture and believes as if it is their own. Not acting as if it is something else. I understand I'm white, I know who I am, but at the same time, I and my life and the way that I was brought up feel more comfortable in a social space that is African American than I would in a white space. And in fact, I actually get very uncomfortable when I'm in spaces with all white people. So I don't think it's some form of self-hatred because I don't hate myself, but I have specific attitudes towards white people in general.